Tonight's video is to review the water cycle for our test on Friday. This is something that we've gone over last week, and it's part of your poster that you're making for the class and also for your essay that you have due for this class. And so what I'm expecting you to know from this water cycle here is that you should know the short-term cycle, and you should know what the other terms mean and some examples of them. Now, there are two parts to the water cycle. There are what is referred to as the short water cycle, and there's what's referred to as the long water cycle. I'm going to start with the short water cycle here, and this is something that we're all familiar with. To begin with, 97% of the Earth's water is available in oceans or seas. That leaves another 3% that's available as fresh drinking water, with 0.001% of that being in the atmosphere at any given time. And the way this water gets into the atmosphere is you get evaporation from rivers, lakes, streams, seas, oceans, ponds, any body of water. And this evaporation takes the liquid water, turns it to a gas, at which point it's referred to as atmospheric water vapor. So once this water is in the atmosphere, what needs to happen is it needs to form into clouds and undergo condensation. And the way this works is for condensation you need a surface for the gas water vapor, the atmospheric water vapor, to turn back into a liquid. And within the atmosphere what we have is we have all these dust particles that are up there that provide a perfect surface for the water vapor to recondense on. Now once these clouds get too heavy and there's too much water that's condensed on it, what happens is you get precipitation. You get rain, sleet, snow, hail, and that water returns back to the earth. And so this process is fairly short. It may only take a few days for this to happen. Whereas the long-term water cycle can take millions of years. It can be shorter than that too. It could be as short as a few days also. Now, for the long water cycle here, you have the same beginning. You have to have water evaporate and get into the atmosphere, condense and form clouds, and rain back to the earth in the form of precipitation. When rain does return to the earth, or any kind of precipitation for that matter, though, it doesn't always stay in the exact place that it initially fell. If it did, we'd have a problem in that, like the deserts out west would never get any water. And the way deserts get water, or other bodies of water for that matter, is through a process called runoff. And so what runoff is where this precipitation returns to the earth, and it flows into a larger body of water, whether it's a river, stream, sea, ocean, lake, does not matter. And so that's still part of the short-term cycle there, the runoff. And this water could evaporate again at any time and return to the water cycle. But some of this water, instead of staying on the surface of the earth here, what it does is it undergoes a process called infiltration. And infiltration is the slow seeping of this water into the earth. And as it seeps through the soil and the clay and the sand and the porous rock that's there in the earth, what's happening is it's filtering out any contaminants. And so when this water ends up in the groundwater here, you get a really clean water source. But this could take, like I said, upwards of millions of years. And so groundwater does eventually return to the water cycle, whether it's through a well or a natural spring, or sometimes it just flows into a lake or an ocean. And we don't notice that it is going back into the water cycle there. But it's a very slow process. And so that's one way that we have the long water cycle. The other way is through life processes. So when plants and animals take up water, they don't immediately give that water back to the water cycle. Plants take it up and they get rid of it through a process called transpiration, which is kind of like sweating for plants, in that the water evaporates from the plant. And so that could take, maybe only a couple hours. It could take years. It could take decades for that water to make its way through the plant and back out. The same thing is true for animals here. It can take anywhere from hours to years for that water to process through your system. And the way that we return this water back to the water cycle is through waste products such as urine, you can lose water through saliva or tears or sweat. And so once you do that, then the water returns to the water cycle and the cycle continues. There are questions on NOMEA for you to answer for the extra credit. And remember that we have a test on Friday.